Good morning. My name is Olivia Bannister, and today I will be presenting the findings from my research paper, Repurposing Office Spaces as we Transition to Remote Working. This research attempts to identify the most sustainable working environment and how underused office spaces can be adapted. Therefore, the research questions are: number 1, what are the effects of working remotely on social and environmental sustainability? Number 2, what is the common design of office spaces in class A2 and B1? And number 3, what can office space be adapted into? Moving on to the reason for this research, in 2018 Manchester added a further 37% of office space compared with 2017, and since March 2020 most of this office space has been unused and may continue to be underutilised in the future. As we get used to the new normal, Jess Staley, the chief executive from Barclays, suggested that piling 7,000 employees into a tall building may be a thing of the past. With the built environment contributing to 39% of all carbon emissions in the world, if we redevelop unused office spaces, could this percentage be reduced? Now I will go through the literature review which goes through relevant information supporting the repurposing of unused office space. Firstly, the drive for change. Pre-COVID-19 organisations were already acknowledging their expensive offices that were grossly underutilised, and now the transition to home working has made us realise that work that usually takes place in an office can be done from home. In 2019, the number of hospital beds fell to its lowest level ever, and when the pandemic hit the UK in March 2020, the shortage of hospital beds was frightening, causing the rush opening of the 90 Gale hospitals occupying spaces such as conference centres. The UK's chronic housing shortage is one of the biggest challenges the country faces, with the government aiming to build 300,000 new homes every year to meet the demand. By repurposing office spaces, this could contribute to the hospital bed and housing shortage. Possibly the most important drive for change is the Paris Agreement. This is a legally binding international treaty on climate change to limit global warming to below 2 degrees Celsius compared to pre-industrial levels. It requires economic and social transformation to face the climate challenges now and for the future. The government recognised the urgent need to increase the rate of house building in England and therefore introduced permitted development rights to allow changes from office class B1 to residential class C3. In the review of the questionnaire, which looks at the effects on social sustainability from working remotely from home, there seemed to be no obvious correlation with the job sector and results. However, in the figures shown on the screen, the participants that strongly disagreed were in the healthcare and education sector. This is most likely because the jobs require a face-to-face approach, which would be difficult to carry out their job properly without being in their normal work environment. When asking employees where they prefer to work, it was almost a 50-50 split. This split could start the process of businesses downsizing if employees are given more choice. By cutting down to 50% of the initial space they have, it could allow some office space to be repurposed. From discussing previous literature, there is clear evidence that it is more environmentally sustainable to work from home and therefore repurpose office space. In April 2020, there was 17% less global CO2 emissions compared with the mean average in 2019. Although this percentage is not 100% due to people working from home, there will be a correlation of less commuting and no office operating costs such as heating. The reduction in people commuting to work reduces the greenhouse gas emissions in the UK by 6.75%, which can contribute to reaching the Paris Agreement by 2030. By looking at common office space design in class A2 and B1, you are able to understand which type of office space is more feasible to repurpose. Overall, it depends on the design of individual office space and whether it is feasible to convert. Depending on the design of office space, it can have a positive or negative influence on conversion potential. To create a high standard of conversion, the location of the office should be in the city centre as they are more desirable, whereas converting a business park, the location would need to be transformed. There should be a maximum size of the office being converted to limit the amount of residents living there and therefore putting pressure on local infrastructure. The plan of the office space should be shallow, open plan with tall ceilings to create a sense of space and light. The conversion of the internal layout should surround the central core as this can be used for building services, fire safety and means of escape. To understand what office space can be adapted into, a case study of Terminus House was analysed. Terminus House is a grey concrete former office building comprising of a 9-storey tower above 5 floors of car parking. It gained approval for office conversion to residential use in 2014. It now comprises of 200 flats. A typical upper floor shows 26 narrow flats accessed by a long corridor connected to 2 lifts and 2 staircases. 22 of the 26 flats are single and have just one openable window. They are in the region of 18 to 20 metres squared. The shower rooms do not meet the minimum requirement of Part M and there is no built-in storage. The noisy and polluted external environment creates an absence of any sense of home, and the developments are now primarily used for housing single people or families with children who are homeless. Due to the conversions being done under permitted development rights, the councils have had no warning to prepare themselves for the increase in services, and it is now an area of high crime. Overall, there have been many office to residential conversions with different outcomes. The case study on Terminus House created a negative impact on the surrounding area and put pressure on local infrastructure. The unsuccessful development was due to the conversion being undertaken through permitted development rights. However, due to the changes of permitted development rights in 2020, we may see an improvement in these types of conversions. To conclude, the aim of this research paper was to identify the most sustainable working environment and how unused office spaces can be adapted. The survey results and analysis of existing literature concluded that it is more socially and environmentally sustainable if employees have the option to work from home. Therefore, 50% of offices should be repurposed to relieve the housing crisis and decrease the amount of new builds to reduce the impact the built environment has on the environment. Further research needs to be taken to conclude whether office to healthcare facility conversions are feasible, as there was no existing literature to conclude this. Thank you for listening, and please feel free to ask me any questions that you may have.